Welcome friends, welcome back to the kitchen. So I was at the grocery store this morning. I was searching for a whole pork belly because I've got a bunch of recipes that I wanted to try out. And I thought if I can get a whole pork belly, I can slice it into three and do three different kinds of recipes. They didn't have a whole pork belly. So I ended up getting this, which is a sliced pork belly. It's skinless and it's sliced into strips. Not exactly what I was looking for, but I think it'll work. The recipe we're going to do today is a take on pork belly burnt ends. And this is one of those recipes that I think to myself, it's not really burnt ends, but I know what they're trying to get across by calling it burnt ends. You're specifically smoking the pork to get that burnt end feeling. And so what I'm going to do, I've never done before. This is a recipe that isn't really a recipe. I'm trying something based on other things that I've done. And so if you watched our Dr. Pepper jerky recipe from a couple of weeks ago, I made sort of a marinade with jalapenos and Dr. Pepper and marinated the beef before we smoked it to make the jerky. I'm going to start with that basic recipe, except I'm using Coke today because Coke is what I had in the fridge. So I've got a couple of cans of Coke, just going to put it in this pot. The idea is that I want to simmer all of these ingredients to bring them together and then chill this down completely before we marinate the pork. To that, I'm going to add some sliced jalapenos. There's 3 or 4 jalapenos in here, and I've even put in the tops with the stem. All of it, even the seeds, everything goes in. Next in is a sliced onion, and it's just roughly sliced. Don't really have to worry too much about that. I'm going to deviate a little bit from the jerky recipe that I used. Again, I've got 3 cloves, 3 whole cloves. I'm going to put them in. I like cloves with pork, but I can find that cloves get really overpowering. So I'm just putting in 3, and I'm going to see how that works. I've never done this before. Flying without a net, flying without a recipe. You're going to see me either make something that works or fail by the end of this video. Next in, black pepper, salt. Okay, so I screwed up the audio on that last shot. You're going to have to take my word for it that in this pot I have jalapeno peppers sliced up, a sliced up onion, salt, and black pepper. And to that I'm going to add white pepper, garlic powder, and onion powder. And I'm going to give that a stir. So that's what happens when you're working alone. I forgot to press go on the audio recorder. So I'm just going to bring this up to a simmer. That's going to soften everything in the pot, bring all of the flavors together, or start to bring all of the flavors together. And I'm going to simmer it for about 3 minutes. Then I'm going to cool it down before we move on. Now the reason this works is the pop, whatever pop you use, Coke, Dr. Pepper, whatever, it brings liquid that you need, obviously. It brings an acid, and it brings sugar to the marinade. 3 things that a marinade needs. Pretty easy. Let's see how this goes. Okay, so the pork belly, let's get it out onto the cutting board. Now I'm going to cut this crossways into cubes, so it's pretty much the same size the whole way around. Stick it into that bin for marinating. Of course, if you don't have a bin like this, that's fine. You could put it into any glass container to marinate it. You could put it into a Ziploc bag. Ziploc bag is probably a great idea since you can then squish it around and make sure that the marinade gets all over the pork. My marinade has chilled down, so I put it, after it had done simmering, I stuck it into a sink with cold water, circulated the cold water around it, chills it down really quickly. You don't have to chill it quickly. I just didn't want to waste time waiting around for it to chill on the countertop. Okay, last few cuts. And this last piece of pork belly is a little bit rough in the way that it was butchered. That's okay. We can make it work. So those all go in. And now we pour in the marinade. Now, this is going to go into the fridge for 15, 16 hours probably. And in that time, I will pull it out every once in a while and give it a stir. Make sure that everything is down in the marinade for quite some time. And this is where a big Ziploc bag comes in handy, because you can make sure that everything is under that marinade. Okay, so I will see you back here tomorrow. Some time has gone by, and this is marinated nicely. So I'm going to start by pulling the pieces out and putting them on this rack. So I've got a rack inside a baking tray just to catch all of the drips. I'm going to pull them out, put them on the rack, and then I can put the rack right out on the smoker, and makes it a little bit easier for transferring and moving them around. I'm also, if I pull out onions or jalapeno pieces, they're going to go out to the smoker as well, I think. I'm going to give that a try. And wherever possible, I'm trying to sit these so they're fat side up, just to allow that fat to render down through the meat. I know that it doesn't actually render down through the meat, but just to baste itself as it's smoking. So I've got the smoker set up to 185, 195 degrees, and I'm going to put these two trays on here, close the lid, and then forget about it for at least 2 hours. I don't want to be fussing with it, looking at it, playing with it. Just leave it on here and let it smoke. Now while that's outside smoking, I want to make the barbecue sauce that we're going to glaze it with later. And my idea is that I'm going to turn this marinade into the base of that barbecue sauce. So the first thing I'm going to do is just strain out any solid bits, like all of the peppercorns and the cloves and such. Okay, that's quite a bit of sludge that I got out. I'm going to get rid of that. Now I'm going to bring this up to a boil. I'm going to boil it for 2 or 3 minutes just to sterilize it, pasteurize it, whatever you want to call it, make it safe for tasting. Then I'm going to taste it. And from that point, I'm going to decide what I need to add to it to make the barbecue sauce. It smells great. It smells like it's going to be very sort of hot, spicy, and peppery. So I'll give it a little bit of a taste. Ooh, definitely hot, definitely spicy. Peppery flavors there. The balance is off though. It is too much on the hot side, so it needs a little bit more sweet. It probably needs a couple of other things as well, so I'm going to go to the fridge and the pantry and figure out what I'm going to add to this. Okay, we've got a low simmer going here, and I'm going to add half a cup of brown sugar. I think that should balance some of the heat. I'm going to add some tomato paste, about half a can. So I've just got this at a low simmer because I want to simmer it and thicken it up, make a nice thick barbecue sauce. Next in, I'm going to add some tamari, probably about 2 tablespoons. Use soy sauce. Tamari is just a kind of soy sauce. Use whatever soy sauce you have in your fridge, whichever one you like, whichever one you use all the time. Use the one that you've got. I want to put in some vinegar. And again, just using what I've got. This was over there on the back counter. All I had to do was grab it. I didn't have to dig through the cupboard. Use the vinegar that you like. And this is red wine vinegar. It doesn't have to be red wine vinegar. Just something to bring a bit of bright acidity. And then I'm going to put in some Worcester sauce. I know that this Henderson's Relish is not Worcester sauce. I know it's a different condiment. If you can get this, I think it would be amazing in this sauce, and you might not need to use as much vinegar because this is much more vinegary. And so I'm not going to use it because I do know that people outside of Sheffield might have difficulty finding it, so I am going to use the Worcester sauce. And maybe about a tablespoon, tablespoon and a half, something like that. Put it in and give it a stir. And I'll just give this a little taste just to see if we're on the right track. I won't know what it tastes like until it boils down when it concentrates, but I think this is going to work. I think this is going to work pretty well. You've got some heat. You've got brightness from the acidity. You've got depth of flavor from the soy sauce. That's good. Okay. We'll just let that simmer away to thicken up. Okay, 2 hours have gone by, and these are cooked. Temperature-wise, they're cooked. They're probe tender. But, let's just grab one here. Tastes amazing. I'd eat that just the way it is. And I'm going to have to really try hard not to. But the problem is, a little bit chewy. The fat could render out a little bit more. They could get softer. That sort of jelly, gelatinous. Okay, so I'm transferring these to this aluminum tray. Okay, last cube of pork. Now, these smoked jalapeno rings taste absolutely amazing. I'm going to throw those in too. The onion and the jalapeno ring, pretty happy with that. I'm going to put the lid on this tray. Now when I pulled these off of the smoker, I turned the temperature up to 275. So I'm going to put these back on the smoker, sealed, 275 for 35 or 40 minutes or so. Now it's time to glaze the pork with this barbecue sauce that we made. So I'm going to open this up. Pull this out, and we'll pull the lid off. Ooh, looks amazing. So, I just want to drizzle in some of the sauce. I might not use it all, just enough to get a nice glazed coating on the outside of this pork. Now I'm going to put this back on, close the lid, and let it go for about another half hour. Okay, so you're going to notice that I'm pulling these out of the oven. I ran out of pellets. Now, the last stages of cooking where I put them into this container with the lid on and put them back out there, from that point on you can do it in the oven. You don't need to do it on the smoker at all. So, let's dish a few out and see what they look like.
Hey,
Ooh.
Glenn. Hey, friends.
Hey, Jules.
Those are like little meat nuggets. What do you got there?
Pork belly burnt ends, or
Okay.
I'm going to say they're going to be really good.
Okay.
A little bit of sauce there, Jules. Oh, looking good. Okay, in with, okay.
Oh, that's what I wanted.
Okay, so the flavor's really nice. Super hot out of the oven, probably too hot.
Yeah, I think I burnt my tongue.
And
a little too big. That
Maybe
was a
yeah.
lot of chewing. It's yeah, just a little too big for me. I need a knife.
the barbecue sauce is really nice. Just
That'll go
the
well on other things. Look at that.
just the right
inside.
amount of heat. Overall flavor. Okay, so I think these are a winner. There's so many ways to end up at this point. I see so many barbecue guys who take the whole piece of belly and then they put on their rub, smoke it, then cut it, then do this process. And I see other guys that chop it up into little cubes and then cover it in rub. I kind of think that this way of marinating it adds that layer of flavor without going the rub route.
I don't know. You could probably still do all of those things.
You could definitely, after I pulled it out of the marinade, you could have coated it in rub to get probably a deeper bark than I got. But any way you slice it, I think this is a winner. There's a lot of pork belly there.
There's a lot of pork belly there. It's true.
Thanks for stopping by. See you again soon.